and welcome to the Policy Center for the New South. In today's episode, we're going to talk about gender, mediation, peace and security, and I'm happy to host Miss Loredana Teodorescu. She is Senior Fellow at the Istituto Affari Internazionali on gender issues in international relations, and she is also the head of the Mediterranean Women Mediators Network. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
Thank you for inviting me.
Today, with the surge of political disruptions in different parts of the world, particularly in Africa, how can the participation of women in mediation and peace processes be enhanced to ensure their voices are integral to conflict resolution and peace-building efforts?
That's a very good question to start our conversation. So I would say that first of all, we need really to understand that increasing the participation of women is beneficial for the whole society. This is something that I always repeat. It's not just about gender equality, about human rights, about democracy, but this is really for the peace and security of all of us. So I think that first of all we need to understand that conflicts have a different impact on women, which means that we really need to reflect women's needs and aspirations when we decide and frame policies, because this is the only way to have sustainable solutions, to have solutions which really reflect also half of the population. And at the same time, we need to understand that women are not only victims and they can really be an actor of change. This means that enhancing the participation of women has really a direct impact, a positive impact on peace and security, because when women are able to overcome structural barriers to their participation, they can really make the difference, they can really bring a different perspective, their different knowledge, the knowledge which comes also with the role they have within their communities and within their own families. So we have data, we have research proving us that there is a correlation between women empowerment, for instance, and peace and security, which means that more equal societies are also more peaceful and more stable societies. At the same time, we have also data, for instance, on the impact of women's involvement in peace agreements. So we know that when women are involved directly in peace talks, there is a higher chance to get a final result, to get an agreement, and the final agreement is also lasting longer. So again, there is a positive impact, and this is, I would say, the starting point. Then I would say that nowadays there is more awareness. This is an important progress, but at the same time we are still facing important challenges. The first challenge is in terms of numbers. So numbers of women participating in formal processes are still very low. Between 1992 and 2019, we had only 13% of negotiators and 6% of mediators. Definitely, this is not enough. If we look at more recent data, 2022, for instance, women negotiators or participating on behalf of conflict parties were only, again, 16%. So we should really work in terms of numbers, which means that we need to create a critical mass. But at the same time, we need also to understand that this is reflecting a broader situation where women are underrepresented at all levels of the society. So we really need to understand what are the structural barriers still existing and, overcome them with concrete measures, with legislative measures, integrating more women at the socioeconomic level, with education, so working on different levels. So the final goal should be really having more women at all levels, which will be then reflected also in peace and security. And the second challenge I would like to highlight is in terms of visibility and recognition. So as I always say, women are not really absent, they are rather sometimes invisible, which means that they are not present at formal tables, but they are very active on the ground, at community level, behind formal scenes, in informal settings. So we really need to recognize that what they are doing is often creating the premises for peace and stability. So this should be therefore further supported and further valued and recognized for how essential it is to create peace and stability. And final remark is about what we are aiming at. So it's not just about having a higher number of seats at the table, it's about having an impactful contribution of women, and it's also about women contributing to create the processes, so they don't just want to sit at a table which was created and framed by others, they want to contribute to the processes leading then to the formal tables.
Thank you. What is the role of civil society, particularly networks of women mediators, in advancing the women, peace and security agenda, and how can these networks be strengthened?
So I would say that the role of civil society is essential. It was essential for the adoption of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda in 2000, and it's now essential to contribute to advance the agenda itself. Of course, networks of women mediators are a very unique initiative, experience, which is contributing to advance the role of women in peace and security. And here I can bring my own experience as head of the Mediterranean Women Mediators Network. This is a network which was created by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs already in 2017. And since the beginning, it was implemented by two civil society actors. One is a leading think tank in foreign policy in Italy, which is Istituto Affari Internazionali. The other one is Women in International Security Italy, which is affiliated to a global network promoting women's leadership and gender equality in peace and security. So since the beginning, there was this connection between the institutional level and the civil society level, which I think it's essential then to develop and consolidate the initiative. Now, we have some years of experience, so we can look back and try to understand what has been the added value of this kind of network. I would say that so the added value is on different levels. First of all, in terms of connection and coordination, I mean, we act as bridges between what happens at regional level, so we have a regional scope by definition, the Mediterranean region, but at the same time we are very much connected with what happens at global level. And at global level, for instance, we contributed to create a global alliance of regional women mediators network with the idea of amplifying our messages and to coordinate what we are doing on the ground. And we always keep in mind and the focus on what happens at local level. For instance, we created local antennas in Cyprus, in Turkey, in Kosovo, and in Lebanon. And in other countries, we welcomed and supported the creation of national networks, such as in Morocco. And this is important because, of course, each country, each conflict has its own specificity, and we need to take this into consideration. We act as a bridge also between the civil society and the institutional level. So we believe that we really need to access the political level if we want to contribute to a change. But at the same time, the political and institutional level really needs the views and the perspectives from the ground, from the civil society, from the grassroots level, because these can really inform, their decisions and take into consideration what's really happening on the ground. We are working in terms of visibility, as I said. This is also an important point to recognize what is happening in informal scenes and is often unseen and valued, invisible. And by doing so, I think that we are contributing to a different narrative. First of all, really strengthening the role of local mediation, which is fully part, of the whole efforts for mediation and should be equally valued. In terms of leadership is not just the leadership to the front, it's also the collective leadership where each actor has a role to play and needs to be recognized for that. And then, of course, we are embodying the spirit of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda, showcasing what women can really bring to the table. And then we act as a network, which means that we are a source of expertise, information and knowledge, because we gather women with different background and expertise. And we always ensure that the gender perspective is really included in all the different processes. And we are also a tool of empowerment, because in the end, women are supporting each other, are learning from each other's experience, are mentoring each other, and this is really a core part of being part of a network. Now, if I look at the current challenges in terms of peace and security, I would say that the networks are also an important tool for soft diplomacy, because our mediators are keeping alive dialogues. They are working in terms of resilience of their own communities. In a way, they are trying to restore an international order which is not only based on hard power. And this is essential, I think, in the current situation. Now I'm also realistic, so I would say that this is what so the networks can achieve only so far. The wider system needs to change, and networks need to be further strengthened, of course, which means, first of all, creating really the space and the opportunities. I mean, we are training women, we have women already ready to play a bigger role, so it's really about creating the opportunities for those women to play that role, and this is very much related to also to institutions and the political support we can get. Second point is about partnerships. It is really important to work in synergy, so create synergies among actors in the spirit of a complementarity, avoiding duplications, avoiding the duplication of efforts and also waste of funds. It's also about creating synergies, a link between different agendas. So sometimes we see women, peace and security agenda as something separated from the other geopolitical dossier, which is not the case. We know, for instance, that peace and stability should also be accompanied by an investment in socio-economic measures. So there is already a link there between the different agendas. As I was saying before, we also know that for having more women in peace and security, we need more women at all levels of the society. So here again, I think a strong link between agendas. Now we are also reflecting on the link between women, peace and security and current challenges, the link between, women, peace and security and climate or cybersecurity. So definitely we need to work more on creating and understanding those links and connecting the agendas. And final point, I would say it's more about really financial and institutional support. And when I say financial support, I have in mind also the fact that donors should be sometimes ready to think out of the box, because investing in peace is a long-term investment, which means that sometimes we cannot have concrete and tangible results, in just a few months. But still, we need donors. Still, we need institutions to be there and support us and really believe in what we can achieve. And so, in the end, what we need is really more political willingness, more political commitment, starting from the fact that the Women, Peace and Security agenda should be seen as a political agenda and as a cross-cutting agenda.
All right, thank you very much. In the African context, what prospects exist for moving from commitments to action in Women, Peace and Security agenda, and what concrete steps are necessary to bridge this gap?
Okay, so first of all, let's say that I really think it's time to move from formal commitments to real implementation of the agenda. And I think that the current challenges we are experiencing in terms of peace and security are, in a way, are prompting us, are pushing us to do more, to think differently about the next steps, to try to overcome also the business as usual approach. And next year we will celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Women, Peace and Security agenda. It's just an anniversary, yes, but I think it's really an important opportunity for all the member states, for all the countries, for all the organizations to think about the progress and achievements made so far and make concrete steps to fill and to close the gaps which are still existing. When it comes to the African continent, and this applies also, I would say, to other contexts, is the starting point is awareness. So we have the Women, Peace and Security agenda since 2000, but we really need to leverage more that instrument which already exists. And so it's about starting from more awareness of what is the Women, Peace and Security agenda and what does it entail. Then the Women, Peace and Security agenda needs to be also translated into concrete national action plans. I know that 32 countries so far in the African continent developed a national action plan, but this should not be seen as a result in itself. It's just a means to unfulfill, let's say, the potential of the Women, Peace and Security agenda. So again, if I look at the African continent, many countries have their national action plan, many countries have women in powerful positions, but I would say that this is not enough. So in many cases, the agenda still needs, to fulfill its potential, and this is because there are still structural barriers to the participation of women, and that's where we need to work. So we need to put the participation of women in peace and security in a broader picture and make a bigger effort in terms of women empowerment and gender equality. So for instance, there is a very specific case which I think it's very interesting for us, which is Rwanda's case. In Rwanda, after the war in 2003, there was a new constitution. The new constitution adopting a gender quota of 30% of women in all elected positions in the government. This allowed for more women to enter, elected positions, and then those women paved the way for some important legislative measures, for instance, when it comes to equal access to land or when it comes to equal pay in the job market. And this was again a trigger for more participation of women, and now Rwanda is one of the leading countries when it comes to the female participation in the parliament, because it's I think that now the female participation is around 60%. Is probably one of the highest, if not the highest, number of women we can see worldwide at the parliamentary level. So it's really about looking at the different sectors and the different levels of society and try to overcome the barriers which are still there. And this is also related to education, of course, because it's in the end we need a change of mindset, and starts from education. And then maybe one last point is about really always pushing for inclusive processes. So even if sometimes it's not really possible to bring all the actors to the table or to push for a bigger participation of women, I think that we need to be creative and still find ways to include women's voice and women's perspectives. This might be with advisory boards, this might be with different platforms. So in a way, we always need to ensure that all the processes are inclusive, because this is in a way a guarantee for the final result. And in this regard, it's also important to use and to really benefit from the already existing instruments, such as the networks of women mediators. So in the African continent, there are present 3 networks of women mediators: the Mediterranean one, the one I'm chairing, but also FemWise, which is really playing a leading role, and the Arab network. And I think that they should be used the most in order to also help to have this kind of inclusive processes and then to achieve or to fully implement the agenda.
All right, thank you very much for those insights. Dear audience, thank you very much for following this episode, and see you very soon.